Abesim area, Berima Kume Achian, suspects Richard Appiah, who is the first suspect in that case, is not mentally sound, claiming he has been exhibiting strange behaviors in recent times. On the Pulse this afternoon, we're speaking with all the people who matter on the way forward to ending the incessant killings. Plus, the World Health Organization is this afternoon urging African countries to focus on vaccinating most at-risk groups, as it notes that the West African sub-region has in the last 4 weeks recorded its highest number of COVID-19 deaths since the pandemic began. We have details of how our health facilities are looking right now, and also looking forward to getting answers on how health authorities are treating this warning. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at the Nana Aisha. It's always a pleasure to host you.
What's up, guys? My name is Sammy Forson, host of the Weekend City Show and Ignition right here on Joy 99.7 FM. Well, anytime you happen to be busy and you miss out on your favorite shows right here on Joy FM, here's what you can do. Log on to myjoyonline.com/podcast. Just go on there and you'll find all your shows on demand 24/7. There you can catch up. Remember, Joy FM remains your radio for discerning listeners.
Welcome back to the Post. Remember to join the conversation through all our social media handles and also tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. This afternoon, it's been a deadly weekend on Ghana's roads with at least 28 people killed in 3 separate accidents. This is in addition to the numerous cases of crashes which have left many people dead or injured over the last 8 months of this year. Are we in a crisis yet? We have all the experts to help us understand what's going on, plus a peep into the minds of commercial drivers who are usually involved in these accidents. Let's start though with the statistics on the accidents we've had so far. And if you look at the way things has gone over the years, you look at 2010 to 2020 and you see that it's been increasing so far. In 2010 we had 1986, 2011 2,199, in 2012 2,214, 2013 1,898, 2014 1,833. That's a little drop from 2012, but if you look at 2015, 1,802, then in 2016 it picks up 2,084, in 2017 1,823, in 2018 it picks up again 2,020, 2019 it keeps going up 2,284, in 2020 2,589. That's how the trend has been. Now the statistics on the number of cases reported between January and July: 9,520 cases. Number of persons killed 1,706 persons. Number of persons injured, that's between January and July, 7 months, 9,299 persons. This is alarming. Now, you look at the number of vehicles involved, and you also see 16,226 total number of vehicles involved. Then this is the breakdown. Commercial vehicles, you have 5,726. Private vehicles, you have 6,829, and then you have 3,671 for the motorcycles. And this is the regional breakdown, because if you look at some regions, the numbers are higher, and Greater Accra is always leading. 391, that's the number of persons killed between January and July. 391 from Greater Accra alone. In the Eastern region, you have 279, and in Central region, 119. It looks like that number is a bit low, but you come to Western region, you have 67, and then you come to Ashanti region, the number goes up again, 357. So it's following Greater Accra closely on that. And then in In the Volta region, you have 68 deaths between 7 months. Northern region, 39. Upper West, 24. Upper East, 65. And you have in the Bono region, 55. Bono East region, 76. Ahafo region, 44. Oti, 13. Savannah region, 61. Western North, 43. And Northeast, you have 5. So if you look at this trend, you see that Northeast has the least, but Greater Accra and Ashanti region tops the list of the regional breakdown. Let's compare 2020 and 2021. And between January and July, in that period, 2020 and 2021, in 2020, we had 1,371. In 2021, around same period, we had 1,706. This is the increased percentage. That's the increased percentage there, 24.43%. That's how much we've increased per road carnage. Now, we are comparing 2020 and 2021, the number of persons injured between January and July. And in 2020, we had 8,199. 2021, fast forward, we had 9,299, 13.42% increase in percentage over there. Let's compare the number of vehicles involved, and it's also the same period, 2020 and 2021, between January and July. And in 2020, you had 3,056. In 2021, 3,671. That's 20.93% upwards there. So all these indicates that we've been having an upward trend. We've been having an upward trend, and the gap keeps widening without closing. So this afternoon, we are going to have a conversation and ask why we're here and why the numbers are increasing by the day. Officials of the National Road Safety Authority are currently locked in a meeting to find solution to what appears to be a looming crisis. We'll get updates for you when we can. Right now, though, let's bring you a report from the Central Regional Correspondent, Richard Kwejo-Nyako, following an accident at Gomoa-Mampong Sunday dawn. 10 people lost their lives.
The first accident happened at 3 a.m. Sunday dawn at Gomoa-Mampong. The night had already witnessed some showers of rain. 2 buses, one from Accra to Cape Coast and the other from the opposite direction. The 2 buses, it is reported, were overtaking vehicles ahead of them and collided after they were not successful in overtaking the vehicles ahead of them. 10 died on the spot, and it had to take the fire service team a huge task to retrieve bodies that were trapped in the remnants of the 2 vehicles, and also undertake a rescue mission on survivors that got equally trapped too. Emmanuel Kwaku is a survivor of the accident and was on board the bus bus. He narrates what happened.
It all started when our driver had an overtaking first. When he was about to, after finishing his overtaking, he wanted to land or to be into his lane. So unfortunately, we saw that the other car has made another overtaking. So our driver wanted to save the other driver so that they did not collide or did not crash. So unfortunately, we saw that the other bus, which has already done overtaking, has crashed our car at the back of our car. Then this is what happened. So the truth of the matter is both cars made an overtaking. Ours was very fast to finish his lane or whatever that he wanted to do. Then unfortunately the other one was not able to move into his lane because the other car it seems it was also having a top speed that caused the accident.
Winneba Municipal Fire Officer Henry Esiedu confirmed the incident and how they conducted the operations.
Later we have to extricate, we have to remove those who were trapped in the incident. And my men were able to bring out about 5 people who were trapped. 2 of them died. But in all, we have about 10 casualties now. We have 9 currently deposited at the Winneba Trauma Mortuary and 1 also at the Municipal Mortuary. But currently about 26 are on treatment at the Winneba Trauma Hospital. That spot that the accident happened is a hotspot. Accidents have been happening there. We attend accidents almost every week at that particular junction. That is that stretch between Winneba Roundabout and Gomwa, yes, going to Ochekun. Accidents, we attend accidents very frequently there.
He is calling for extra exits to be made on passenger buses, so in case of emergencies, passengers may use the extra exit available on the buses to reduce the casualties.
So I don't know if the place could be lighted. We need street lights and maybe some few ramps at that particular point. In TBB, me as a safety winner, safety oriented, we feel say on us to be on the safe part, and we feel say buses here craning at least 2 doors. In case of an emergency, there should be an emergency exit.
Back here at the Trauma and Specialist Hospital, medical officials are working on the injured. Yamagi, a survivor, was traveling with her father and her son on the same bus. She seems to be in pain, but deeply concerned for her father and son too. I didn't see anything. I was not sleeping too. What I saw was that a very long vehicle had rammed into ours. My child was calling me, Ma, Ma, Ma. I quickly held my child. My bag is still in the car. And I saw my father hanging on the car. I'm yet to see my brother we were traveling with. He was the one who was directing us to where we were attending the wedding. And yet there was another accident that claimed 2 lives almost at the same spot on the same stretch. 2 people have been confirmed dead, while the other person is said to be in critical condition in an accident that occurred at Dominancy Junction on the same Kasua-Winneba Highway. 3 persons were in an unregistered Hyundai Sonata saloon car from Dominancy Junction towards Kasua, and upon reaching a section of the road, the driver made a wrongful overtaking and veered off his lane and subsequently crashed into a palm tree. 2 of them died. Residents are calling for the dualization of the Cape Coast Accra Highway. Not only that, they want street lights on the road that have malfunctioned to be fixed to improve visibility at night. The driver who was in charge of the Yutong bus, Isaac Kobner, age 34, reported himself to the police and is currently assisting police with investigations. The suspect was earlier sent to the hospital, treated and discharged. According to the Central Regional Police Command, 13 females and 11 male passengers sustained varying degrees of injuries and are currently receiving treatment at the Winneba Trauma Hospital. The other driver, who is now deceased, has been identified as Samuel Ba, aged 45. Meanwhile, the 12 bodies have been deposited at the Winneba Trauma and Specialist Mortuary. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejonya-Akon, Winneba.
Well, a lot has been said and done about this situation, but the problem gets worse each day, or at least it's not stopping. We'll get to the minds of the drivers who are always on the road. First, let's hear from some Ghanaians on the streets of Accra.
The recent accidents is not new to Ghana, and then it's a proof that the country needs fixing, because majority of the accidents that occur, it happens, most of them is head-on collision. If our roads were dualized, you can imagine as in 1960s when the Tema motorway was constructed. You see, hardly will you get head-on collision on Tema motorway, and the reason is simple. The road has been dualized.
Through accidents. It's because our roads are not correct. Okay? You see, our major roads supposed to be dual carriage. Okay? By our leaders, because they are not thinking, and they are not thinking about the citizens, they left it like that, one way. And when the car is coming and they want to like bypass each other, then they get accident. So it's not any demonic matter. It's because our leaders are wicked. That's why we are facing this problem.
We have ministers in this country. The drivers who load their vehicles are supposed to be checked before they move out of the station. So this is one of the causes of the accidents we have in this country. The system needs to be fixed to prevent more of these accidents. People are dying too much.
Because this road accident is so much in such a way that it's unbearable and it's not good. People are dying. So the government have to do something about it, to train the drivers, to talk to them very well, so that they will take care of their driving.
In the eastern region, at least 9 persons have been confirmed dead in a head-on collision involving a Sprinter Benz bus and a DAF truck at Apeja. 6 females, including a 6-month-old baby, and 3 males died on the spot. Albert Story also covered another accident in the Upper East region. Now, Richard and Albert will join me via Zoom for some insights into those accidents. First, what are eyewitnesses saying about the cause of these 2 accidents? Let me start with you, Richard Kwejonyako.
Also, what eyewitnesses have been telling me is that it was due to the overtaking and excessive speeding on that particular stretch of the road. In fact, when accidents do happen on this stretch, the chances are that you hear that the accident did occur between Mankasim and then the Gumwa-Budumburam camp. But these are the areas where accidents normally do occur on the Accra-Winneba Cape Coast stretch of the road. And so that is what they have been telling us, that 2 buses were involved in this particular accident. One was coming from Elubo, and the other one was also coming from the direction of Accra. And so all of them were trying to overtake vehicles ahead of them. And in the process, there was a head-on collision. And so that resulted in the number of deaths that we have witnessed, and then the number of injured persons that we have also currently recorded. In fact, currently 3 have been rushed to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital for critical care, and then 9 are currently on admission. Yesterday, they treated and discharged about 14 of them, and so that is the current situation.
Now, let's hear from you, Albert. What have eyewitnesses been telling you?
Yes, so
Albert.
Yes, I said. So I was saying that in the Upper East region, especially concerning this accident that occurred on the Bolga-Boku Road and at Zebila in the Boku West district, the concern from people who witnessed this accident was that there are no speed ramps on the road. Now, we are talking about the Bolgatanga-Boku Road, which 2 years ago and even some parts of last year was full of potholes. It was a very bad road that people usually would take hours in order to go from Bolga to Boko or from Boko to Bolga. Now, that road has been worked on. It is smoother now to travel on the road. The challenge is that it also gives drivers the opportunity to overspeed because there aren't any speed ramps where this particular accident occurred is concerned. So the residents feel that they need to, build a few speed ramps in order to control the speeding, on the part of drivers. And that was how they believe that this particular accident, which was also a head-on collision, occurred yesterday afternoon.
Now, there's been a history of accidents in these areas. I think I want to start with you, Richard Kwejonyako. What's the history of accidents in your area, the Central region?
Also, the history in the Central region has got to do mainly on the Accra-Winneba Cape Coast stretch of the road, even though some do occur on the Yamransa Simple Sukumasi Road, but majority of them do occur on the Accra-Winneba Cape Coast Road. This is because in the night, there are no street lights, and the street lights that are there, a lot of them have malfunctioned. So you realize that one intervention was put in place, that is to erect some police checkpoints. So when you are traveling from Accra to Cape Coast in the night, for instance, you meet about 15 of them. This is to check excessive speeding because the driver will have it in mind that there will be a police barrier, so I do not need to speed. But as soon as they go past the police barrier, then they start speeding again. And again, the road too is very dark. So it even resulted in the killing of a policeman who was at one of these barriers. Residents have complained about the lack of light on the Cape Coast Accra stretch. But I mean, all of these things have not been heeded. And so you find some signages along the routes that 26 people died here, and so reduce the speed. 10 people died here, reduce the speed. All of these cautions have been planted on the shoulders of the road when we are traveling from Accra to Cape Coast. But all of these things are not helping. And so in the first half of this year, the number of accidents that have been recorded are so huge, according to the statistics that have been churned out by the National Road Safety Authority.
Now, Albert, sorry, you want to tell me the history of accidents in your area?
Yes, Aisha. So one of the problems we have in the Upper East region is fatigue on the part of drivers. Normally, when we have very serious accidents where we lose many lives, it is usually involving the buses that bring passengers from Accra to the Upper East region or from Kumasi to the Upper East region. If you are traveling from any of these two places to the Upper East region, it is the longest distance. And most of the drivers, become fatigued and sometimes they sleep. I was involved in one of those accidents somewhere in 2012 when the bus I was traveling into Kumasi, the driver slept and crashed the bus. So it is one major problem that people in the Upper East region face as far as the accidents are concerned. The drivers don't rest enough, and when they are traveling with them to Kumasi or from Kumasi back to Bolga, sometimes they doze off and crash the buses and end up killing a lot of people. But as far as this Boku Road issue is also concerned, in times past, what we used to have as far as accidents on that road were concerned was the bad nature of the road, which often caused some vehicles to run into deep potholes and veer off the road and crash into trees and all of that. Sometimes to armed robbers try to attack some of the drivers by taking advantage of the fact that they slow down on the road. And in the process, some drivers try to escape and they crash the buses. Now we have a situation where that road has been worked on, and now we have to deal with issues of overspeeding. So in this case, the speed ramps, as some of the residents of Zebila are suggesting, will be the solution to the problem.
All right, so Albert, sorry, I'm sure the residents in these areas have been making some demands. What are they demanding?
Yeah, so in the case of Zebila, we talked about the speed ramp, which they said that they needed to put on. I traveled on the road last week, and I realized the journey was very smooth, and the temptation for some drivers to speed would be there. So the solution in this case, as the residents want, will be for the road engineers to try and construct some speed ramps on some portions of the road to control the speeding. On the other hand, when we talk about the fatigue on the part of drivers, in recent times, the Road Safety Authority in the region tried to do some education with the drivers at the main lorry stations. And one of the things they were demanding that the drivers should have, otherwise sometimes they will prevent them from traveling with passengers down south, is that they should have an extra driver such that if one of the drivers is tired, then another can take over the driving. So we don't have situations where drivers get fatigued and crash the buses. The drivers were willing to cooperate, and the Road Safety Authority was saying that they were going to keep the inspections, surprise inspections, to stop drivers who don't comply to certain road safety regulations. So if they intensify this, as they promised to do, it will help reduce these challenges. One of the things they were also encouraging was for the passengers to take responsibility and always try to check certain things in the vehicles that they are traveling, and try to force the drivers to take responsibility when they realize that certain things are not right before they even travel. So these are the expectations that people have as far as the efforts to reduce road crashes in the Upper East region are concerned.
Richard Kwajenyaku, what can you say from your side? Are they demanding anything different?
Well, they are demanding a number of things. One, theirs is not really due to fatigue on the part of drivers because there are rest stops that are available on the Accra-Winneba Cape Coast stretch. And so fatigue, they are ruling that one out. But they are attributing it to the desire, the cravings of drivers to overspeed and then overtaking dangerous ones, even during curves and the others. So they want the visibility of the police to be more on this road. Again, they are also demanding that the Ochaku area between Winneba and Gomuapatson, that is where a lot of the accidents do occur. About 60% of the accidents that do happen occur on that particular stretch. And so residents are calling on authorities to erect some speed ramps in order to reduce the speed that drivers go on that particular road. Again, they are also calling for some street lights so that the road will be well lit, visibility will be improved. So at night, the drivers will not be running into each other. And then also the police will also be present on the road to ensure that they reduce their speed.
Richard Kwajenyaku is our correspondent from the Central Region. Albert Sori is also from the Upper East region. Now, joining us on phone right now is Abbas Ibrahim Moro. He's a driver and also the Senior Industrial Relations Officer for the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, perhaps the biggest union in Ghana today. Also, all the way from the United States, it's Festival Godwin Boateng. He's a Ghanaian researcher who's done some work on accidents in Africa with a focus on Ghana. His postdoctoral research fellow at the Earth Institute of Columbia University, New York. His work on Africa is why Africa cannot prosecute or even educate its way out of road accidents, and it's published on nature.com. Let me start with you, Abbas, and I'm grateful for your time, both of you. Abbas, what's been your own reading of the accidents happening on our roads today?
Very much. The rate at which the current accidents are happening is very, very worrying. We are not happy with it at all. It's very worrying that, you see, in driving, we have a principle, and the first principle is see and be seen. You see, if you apply that principle, you would avoid most of these accidents. Some people are attributing to the fact that the Accra Cape Coast Takoradi Road is a dangerous road. I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. You see, that road is made up of several curves, but we have road signs indicating that we have a sharp curve ahead of you, 2 sharp curves ahead of you. And even there are some signs indicating that 20 people perish here, 30 people perish here, 10 people perish, just to enlighten you, just to make sure you become aware of the road that you are traveling on. So, although we are worried about the current rate of accidents, we are saying if we apply the principles, driving principles, we go by the road signs, we could have avoided most of these accidents. Yes, of course, there are some dangerous road ramps ahead of us, but there are road signs by them. So if you go, look, the Accra Cape Coast Takoradi, no driver is supposed to drive above 80 kilometers per hour. And if you go by this, if you go strictly by that regulation, I don't think we will be experiencing all these accidents. About 2 weeks ago, I traveled on that road, and I was particularly on the 80 kilometers per hour, and most private cars were just overtaking. Some few commercial cars were also overtaking, indicating they were over speeding. We plead with the police. We have requested that they should also help us if they put unexpected checks, speed checks on the road from Accra to Kumasi about 6 unexpected speed checks, I think it will minimize some of these accidents as well.
Abbas,
secondly, we're also pleading that all the highways will be turned into a carriageway. If they dualize it, you see, it will also help and save some of these accidents, because most of these accidents are head-on collisions. So we are pleading.
Abbas, have you been involved in any accident yourself before?
Myself, no, and I'm happy with it. I always pray that I shouldn't get into one of these accidents as well.
But being a driver and also applying the routes all the time and speaking with your colleagues, what do you think could be the factors?
I have had problems like brake failure.
Okay, so I'm asking what you think could be the factors accounting for the accidents. Why would a driver lose control of their vehicle and in the end put the lives of many in danger?
Yes, we have regulations.
Abbas, go on.
We have regulations guiding it. You see, unnecessary overtaking. You see, we have this principle, see and be seen. You cannot overtake in a curve where you cannot see ahead of you. Definitely, unexpected will happen. So if you apply the principle of driving, see and be seen, yes, of course, you have every right to overtake. But you have to be very careful of what you are doing. Look at the strength of your car, which can give you the assessment. You have to look at the brakes, how effective the brakes are. In case unexpected, you can salvage it. This and some small other things are the things that if you do, you will avoid most of these accidents. So let's go by the driving regulations. Let's observe the road signs and we'll drive safely and stay back home.
Abbas, hold on there for me because Festival is also on Zoom with us. Festival, you've done some work in this area. Share with us what you found to be the causes of accidents in Ghana.
Come again.
I'm asking you to share with us your findings in that research you conducted as to the causes of accidents in Ghana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aisha. Hello.
Yes, Festival, I can hear you loud and clear.
Right, and thank you very much, Aisha. I mean, the causes are not different from many of the things that Mr. Moro, and other discussants have talked about. They talked about overspeeding, dangerous overtaking, and all those risky driving practices. But the problem is that we tend to focus on these triggering factors, these immediate, driver errors, as if they are the causes of, the problem, instead of, trying to understand the range of, agencies, constraints. Why are the drivers, trying to do this unnecessary overtaking? What is it for? Why do they do these things? Okay, and so if we begin to interrogate, the kind of incentives, that solicit these dangerous driving practices from, the drivers, then we'll be able to begin to, fashion out, clear, targeted interventions that could deal with the problem. But in most cases, we tend to focus on drivers. Oh, they are just indisciplined. This idea that what is happening on our roads is just about some, pathologically stubborn people who just, go about driving whatever way they like on our roads to undermine their own health and that of, other people. If you frame the problem that way, you limit the range of, interventions you could use to deal with the problem to target on just the drivers. So let's imprison them more. Let's fine them more. Let's punish them, even more, without trying to understand, why, they do that. And so what I found in my research is that we don't, try to understand, a lot of the things that, make people drive unnecessarily, recklessly on our roads. We were talking about, highway accidents. If you talk to the drivers, they will tell you that, for instance, those who go to Kumasi, Accra, and those routes, these people spend a lot of time in traffic, in the cities. And so when they get to the highway, where they call the good roads, that is where they want to, speed to make up for the time they lost, in the traffic. Part of the reason we have so many of the accidents occurring at rural settlements that we have, on our highways. And so if you want to fix, this problem, for instance, and you imprison more drivers, you actually do not, solve the problem. Just fix maybe traffic congestion in the cities, and you wouldn't have drivers get delayed so much in the cities, for which reason they try to make up for the time they lost, with overspeeding on our, highways, and all that. So overall, what we find, in our research is that we tend to focus a lot on the drivers themselves and not try to understand, what range of agencies really propel them, solicit the kind of bad driving practices that become problematic for all of us. If we begin to rethink, yeah.
Did your research also focus on the psychological effects on the drivers that make them commit some of these errors on our roads?
What do you mean by psychological effects?
I mean, what the drivers go through whilst they're driving, if it's fatigue, if it's stress or depression, whatever it is.
Definitely. I mean, if you have, a driver who has to drive for, long hours, the other discussants was talking about, the problem where they are trying to get two drivers to, drive from the place to their destination. This is a great, intervention. The point is that if driver is tired, they would, create problems. But you have these work systems. Okay, he is a driver, he wants to make more money, and probably his transport agency pays them on commission. And so the more trip you go, the more money you get. This is just something everyone else will do. So what they will do is that they will take energy drink and try to beat their fatigue, sit behind the wheels, and create problems for everyone. If you want to solve this problem, you don't target the driver. You target the managers of the transport companies, hold them accountable for the way they structure the work systems for the drivers. And so that they would affect the driving behavior of their drivers. If you decide to just stay on the road, use police officers to arrest them one by one, you wouldn't get this widespread incremental results. Because, for instance, a transport company may have maybe 100 drivers going from Kumasi to Accra, Accra to Takoradi, Sekondi, everywhere, in Ghana. And they've structured, the drivers, work systems such that you would go, a lot of, trips. You cannot address, the problem by targeting these 100 drivers one by one on the roads and arrest them. Hold the transport company accountable that if you, for instance, allow a driver to go round trip like 2-3 times a day, Kumasi to Accra, and something happens, we will hold you, accountable. In that case, these transport companies will begin to restructure their work systems in ways that would not, lead to this, long hour driving, fatigue, and all those problems that will lead to the crashes on the road.
So, what are your recommendations specifically to deal with these road carnage?
We need to be more innovative about the way we think about road safety practice in Ghana. The tendency to just focus on immediate factors, they are not kind of helpful. The thinking globally, okay, in road traffic research and practice is that people don't cause accidents because they are bad people. Everyone else could cause accidents. And so what you need to do is try to understand what interest of factors come together to apply on them in ways that make them cause the problems. And so we need to design the way we focus our interventions and try to address the problem in the higher chain and not just on the roads. It's good to put police officers on the roads to monitor drivers. That's great. But you ask yourself, how many police officers could you put out on our roads to control these problems? And so maybe you need to think back, as we were suggesting. Maybe you target car owners, you target transport operators, you target a lot of the problems that also compel drivers to sign on to exploitative contracts that they fulfill on the roads by being reckless. For instance, part of the problem is unemployment. people don't have jobs. And so they get into this, transport industry to find work. And because, there are no jobs, no labor protections, for drivers, they have no security benefits. Today, you have a car, tomorrow, you don't have it again. If you have the car today, what it means is that you need to do all you can to make, enough money so that if next 2-3 months, you don't have it again, which, by the way, that is their lived experience, you'll be able to put that for yourself. So we need to think broadly, tackle radically unemployment, poor, labor conditions in our road transport sector, and hold, transport companies accountable for how they structure the work systems for drivers in ways that undermine public health on our roads. If we begin to think broadly and work together on and try to tie these interventions, we may be able to address road transport in a more comprehensive way. In that respect, I should note that the government's efforts to revamp the railways sector is very, very good. I hope we'll be able to go through with it, because that would be a very, very good intervention. You reduce the heavy reliance on roads. A lot of people could use railway, which means that you wouldn't have more cars on the roads. Most of the cargo cars that get break down on the roads and cause accidents, a lot of the cargo could be transported through the railway. And so such a broad, radical intervention will be able to meaningfully reduce heavy reliance on the roads, which would also mean that you wouldn't have a lot of the traffic crashes that we have. So let's think broadly. Let's move from this idea that we just can punish drivers and we'll all be fine. We've been doing this for years, and as the statistics you showed clearly indicate, they are not working, or at best they are running their course. They are not giving us incremental benefits. So a broad enough thinking, framing of the problem would lead us to more innovative interventions that may be able to support us to deal with the problem in more meaningful and sustained way.
Hopefully, the duty bearers will take note of some of these recommendations. I want to thank you, Festival Godwin Boateng. He's a researcher who's done extensive work on accidents in Ghana and has also made some critical recommendations that can help us cross this bridge. But in Parliament, MP for South Dai in the Volta region, Roxanne Dafia-Mekpo, is hinting of a motion for the House to ensure swift and full implementation of the amendment to the Roads Regulation Act that prescribes murder charge for drivers who act results in deaths, especially to pregnant women. A private member's bill passed by Parliament in December last year rolls out sanctions against drivers and cyclists whose actions and inactions result in injury or death to unborn children in the womb of pregnant mothers. We'll take a break on the pulse. We'll bring you more when we return. Remember, the police hierarchy here in Accra are taking up investigations into the Abyssine murder. We have a bigger conversation this afternoon on why we are here, who should we blame, and how do we resolve this. You want to stay for this discussion. Welcome back to The Pulse. Remember to join the conversation via all our social media handles. Also tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at the Nana Aisha. Now, the police hierarchy here in Accra has taken up investigations into the bizarre murder of 3 boys whose remains were stashed in a fridge at Abyssine in the Bono region. The main suspect, 28-year-old Richard Appiah, is in the custody of the police in Sanyai after the body parts of a 15-year-old JHS2 student were found together with the lifeless body of his 12-year-old stepbrother, Louis Ajeman, and another yet-to-be-identified body. The matter has thrown the entire town into a state of shock and prompted a visit by the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare. Father of the 15-year-old boy, Yabua Esriama, describes the suspect, Richard Appiah, as his business colleague and a neighbor who he never suspected could cause him so much pain.
Sunday, and Okra me say, baby, I do know Lord Crown, Tiani Fee, no, Crown best about 300 meters.
Unfortunately, he never returned, even though we were told he had left around 6:30, 7 p.m. thereabouts. So we decided to look for him. We did not find him the whole night. Then we reported to the police.
The whole night, at the phone, the airport, my police. Investigation name, on to Sano pay, yet they say, would be offering fear, now of course, if you know. I brand TV or cool, you go here now, so supper with chat, no, trade tea, Janan Sat and then 99.
We had nothing of the investigations until we heard that a young man had killed someone. We got there to find that he was the one. He had killed 2 persons, including his own brother.
No, the crew woman say, was I madam for? Now, just for this, and obey fear say, it's only a Jumacracker away surveyor, quantity surveyor, obey fear crass say, or no one can stand a plot be a woo city fear, blossom young in a gusso. 3 trips near the 90, Tom Mano. Never.
I never suspected him because they lived like brothers should.
One would be an credit. Review will be our number in dinner cheap. So, to be ban free, Quan, who I echoed the fee on some market catch him say, I bet 300 meters, 300 meters away from where we are made a year. Oh, no, in a book coin, to another coin, and that is it.
Let's go over to my colleague Precious Semovo, who's been following this for us from day one. Precious, we understand the case has been moved to Accra. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so Aisha, that was on the back of the visit of the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Dampare, where he directed the homicide division of the CID at the headquarters to take over the investigation of the case. And not only that, all other the remains of the dead bodies as well as other important materials should all be brought to Accra for further, investigation. And he also set up a 2-man team led by the Bono Regional Command police team to liaise between the family as well as the Ghana police by way of a flow of information and any other thing that will support the family. So that is what happened. And as at today, homicide team came to town. They went to the crime scene, continued with their investigation. As at the time that we got there, they had left. And at the crime scene, it's now a security area. So there's 1 man's police personnel, fully armed, guarding the place at Alaska near Abyssine. So currently, that is the situation as we understand now. That there's a second suspect, although the police did not mention the suspect's name, but that has been confirmed. In addition to the prime suspect, Richard Appiah, the 28-year-old young man.
Semovo, what's the general mood in the town?
Well, Aisha, the mood as of now, it remains that of shock and surprise, most especially when this young man is someone that is well known in town, in Abyssine in general. And if you stretch it to Sunyani, he's also well known. People continue to talk about it. This late morning, I passed through the Abyssine Township and then the Alaska area where the incident actually happened. And you could still see pockets of people still discussing about the issue, expressing how surprised they were, and then disagreeing with those sharing the opinion that probably something is wrong mentally with the suspect. People are going about their normal activities, but that it's occasionally interrupted by discussions concerning the incident as it happened Friday, Saturday, and then yesterday.
Precious Semevo, earlier we heard the chief asking investigations to be conducted and an assessment done on the suspect's mental state. But you've been speaking to some residents who disagree that Richard Appiah is mentally challenged, right?
Yes, that is what the chief said, the chief of Abisim, Nanakumi Echao. Again, that was on the back of the closed-door meeting between himself and then the IGP's team. Now, the chief said as much as the incident that happened was very, very terrible and sad, they suspect that the young man is not mentally sound. They said they know him very well and they don't know him to be of such behavior. But in recent times, he has exhibited some behavior that points to the fact that mentally he's not sound. And the chief said that it does not fall within their right to tell the IGP as to how to go about their work, but they will appeal to all stakeholders, particularly those directly involved in the investigation, to consider subjecting the young man to psychiatric examination because they are sure that mentally he is not well. But that has been strongly disputed by residents of the Alaska area where the incident happened, that the activities surrounding the incident before, during, and after does not point to the fact that the young man is mentally challenged. They are saying that if he was mentally challenged, he would have committed a crime and then openly come out and expose the body parts and other things. But for him to have concealed it in a room, in a fridge, indicates that he knows what he's doing. So that is the issue here. We know the investigators, or they believe that the investigators will do the right thing to get to the bottom of this and get justice for the innocent souls.
Precious Semevo is our correspondent in the Bono region. Let's now listen to residents of Abesim on the matter.
Appiah no wono oyobia mfa se ni papa sinipi o hanom nti oba ha nchiri bia sa by enam ne maame store na ye wo ha no ntini enne magen ye di hu no efise tem bia oba ha mfa se wono ye kotokoni ha se na mesum ye kotokoni nti biribia me ko no kra ba ho atinje kwa etim dibi na obi akọ fie nti wono no min hu ni bibia wa ye sa bida anase say wadidi obi ata anase waye ne enye wontam ha de minhu bi da kopin say we see tin suban ya metume ho aka ne say nokure ni wotini fie mesum timfie de bai ntamu ha de wonye adebo ni bia wo hada wa wunua da ho ye hwehwe no wonso na nku no fie ho nso a woda ho nso makọ akọhwe fie no mu na wa wo ka hu nti ho na ya ntamu ha ye ntia ase no ana bo no so nokure ni so obi se na dwinu mu kana binyintu if say juma so the
Abesim murder may have come as a shock to many, but over the last few months, police officials have been recording cases of murder across the country. We'll run you through some of them and examine possible reasons for the rise. According to statistics, though, from the Ghana Police Service, 144 cases of murder were recorded during the first quarter of this year alone, compared to 123 cases recorded last year within the same period. And let me take you through some of the statistics. So if you look at what's the first quarter of this year, if you look at what is on your screen, you will see that in 2020, which gives you a red indication, you have 123 murders. Around the same time in 2021, you have 144. That's an increase in number, and that is so unacceptable. I have all the experts who will be speaking to this because there's a lot more that we need to do. So what is the way forward to ending the incessant killings? This afternoon, we are speaking with all the people who matter on this issue, and joining us for this discussion are Adib Sani. He's a security analyst with expertise in forensic science. Adib, I'm grateful for your time. And also joining us is Dr. Jones Opokuware. He's a criminologist and a crime researcher, and he's with the KNUST. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time this afternoon. Let me start with you, Adib. What's your reading of the recent cases of murder in the country?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. A very good evening to you all. Let me correct an impression. A lot of Ghanaians are tempted to think that what is happening is a recent phenomenon. It is not recent. If you look at the statistics way back, you would realize that we've not really been able to bring down the figures. For some years, consistently, the murder rate has been 500 plus. Okay, even the U.S. Department of State has recognized this. In 2017, the murder rate spiked to 609 Ghanaians. But let me also point to you that these are cases that are reported to the police. And mind you, there are many more that are not reported to the police, which has always been a problem for law enforcement and how they are able to plan against the future. And let me also categorically add that a lot of Ghanaians are tempted to think that once you enter and see someone dead, perhaps a relative, with a rat poison beside him or her, he committed or she committed suicide, right? Or when you see someone dangling from a tree, the person might have committed suicide. And we don't even report this, especially for us Muslims, that the person must go, you know. So a lot of these also go unreported. And really, if you are going to go by it, you realize that the murder rate is something we should be very much worried about. But before we actually get into the nitty-gritty, it is important to understand the science of murder, why it happens in the first place. And I have personally done my research and I've read extensively about this. And one notable writer on this is called Peter Morrell. In 2007, in his book called Murder in Society, Why People Perpetrate Murders, you realize that one of it has to do with psychological issues. Maybe the person is not sane enough. Some, according to research, the testosterone level, when it is high, it can provoke an aggressive behavior. There are some cases where people also do it for psychopathic purposes, some just for the fun of it, some gluttony. They've done it and would wish to do it again because they realize that, oh, it's not so difficult after all. Others also have something to benefit from it, either financial or something else. Okay, so these are the psychological aspect of it. But there are some social push factors that push people into perpetrating murder. And one of it is hunger.
All right, so we have a terrible connection with Adib. He made the point. But let me bring in Dr. Jones also, who is a criminologist, and that he's done a lot of research around this area. A lot of times, I mean, in the past few years, when we hear some of these murders, the suspects usually would use it for ritual purposes. I mean, what is surprising about this particular one is the fact that he's kept pieces of the human body in a refrigerator. What he's going to use it for, we do not know. I mean, what does your research tell you with regards to some of these things?
Okay, thank you very much, Aisha. I think I have to dispel that kind of notion that many of such murders that we experience are for rituals. That is not to discount the possibility that people kill for rituals. In fact, I'm doing a certain work on kidnapping, and especially where you have most kidnapping cases resulting in murder. What you see is that basically people do that for ritual purposes, and that is clear. But in this case, there is something very unique. You know, you have to when crimes like this happen, you have to do a criminal behavior analysis of the crime. And so you have to let the crime scene speak to you. And now if you look at the nature of this crime, you have to ask yourself certain questions. If it was for ritual purposes, and as I know of the patterns of ritual murders, what happens is that if you have to take certain parts of a person's body, they take it and then leave the body wherever they did the murder or they committed the murder, and then leave the body there and then move on. So that is why most of the time when you see patterns of ritual killings, you see the bodies normally disposed of in different parts of the country or different parts of areas. Okay. But for somebody to now murder people and then decide to refrigerate the body, it communicates something different more than just ritual murder. Okay, and in any case, we have found out that there are a couple of people that we have also found in the room where this crime was discovered. What it means is that we may have a serial killer, probably with cannibalistic tendencies within our midst that we may not even know. So all these things should suggest to you that it may not necessarily be for ritual purposes, but it may be because somebody have certain criminal instincts or criminal tendencies that they want to feast on. And my brother Adib made allusions to some of these predispositions. In fact, in criminology, there are those we call hedonistic serial killers, where they kill people for fun or they kill people for the thrill of it. Okay, so in those people, what they try to do is to be able to murder people and to feed that kind of instinct and that kind of thrill. And you may not be surprised to find out this particular kind of murder that we have witnessed could fall in that kind of category. And now let me tell you something. In the criminological literature, we have a lot of evidence that actually suggests that we have people who murder and even devour the flesh of their victims. And normally the procedure that they use is symptomatic of what we see on in this case. In fact, if you go to US, there was one serial killer we used to call Bad Jonah. And this guy, for instance, killed children. Mostly he killed children who were on their way to school and used the flesh. Okay, he preserved the flesh in a fridge and sometimes even in an ice chest with blocks, and then served the flesh in stew and also as barbecue to the neighbors. So most of the time when you have this guy performing his thing, when he's giving out this flesh to people, he will just make a little sarcastic comment like, okay, come and enjoy my little kid stew, or maybe my little kid fries. Okay, so he used to do all these things, and it was at that time that people began suspecting that the taste of the meat that was served to them during these stews, giving out of these stews and during the barbecues, tasted different from the normal kind of stews that they have. So normally we have killers like that. We have those kind of hedonistic serial killers around who normally devour the flesh of their victims. And the way this one is, I wouldn't be surprised we have a serial killer on the loose, and therefore we have to pay more attention to the criminal than just speculating that it is just a ritual murder.
Well, for someone like me, and I believe many of my colleagues, we used to see this as something that was so far from us. Now we're seeing it very, very close to us. I mean, what should we be looking out for in this investigation? I hear Adib Sani is back on the line. Let me start with you.
Well, like my brother, Dr. Jones, rightly mentioned, sometimes when you get to the crime scene, it speaks to you. I mean, there are instances you get to the crime scene, you don't know who has perpetrated the crime, but the evidence on the ground can be used to even develop a profile of the perpetrator. For example, you get to a crime, there's a dead body that has been stabbed like 50 times. Obviously, it should tell you that this is a crime of passion and not a random act of violence, or a robbery gone wrong, or a home invasion gone wrong. That means the perpetrator is an emotional person who has a personal vendetta against the victim. And in criminology, we call it an overkill, all right? So that can be put at play. So I think that we need to do a critical analysis of the murder and what motivated it, and hopefully going into the future, we should be able to put certain strategies in place to reduce the number of murders that is taking place. But let me add to that. I mean, I was talking about it when the system failed. You know, there are some socioeconomic factors related to some of these things. Apart from that, when people lose confidence in institutions of the state, for example, a woman is going through torture in her marriage. If she reports to the police, they go like, wait, if you ask them, it is a domestic issue, deal with it at the domestic level. You think next time, if the husband beats her, she would report to the police, and the next thing you realize she's killed. So if state institutions are capacitated enough to address some of these things, in criminology, we have what we call the broken glass theory, based on the simple premise that if someone breaks your glass and you report to the police and no action is taken, the next time it might be something much more serious than just a glass being broken. So we really need to pay attention to the issue of law enforcement and how we can get them to perform better. And I'm also hearing that the parents of the missing boy reported to the police. The police invited this suspect, and he was then a person of interest, but they saw that they realized that he didn't perpetrate the crime. And the community insisted that he was the last person seen with the boy. So the people took the trouble to go to the house. They saw things that didn't add up before calling in on the police, who forced their way in and found the flesh in the fridge. So this tells us something that we really need to take seriously. Next time, communities might decide to take the laws into their own hands based on mere suspicion without having to report to the police. And in the end, you realize that you might have lynched the wrong person. So, I mean, it is quite disturbing, though. Who knows? We could have saved their life if they had reacted or responded quickly enough.
Dr. Opoku-Ware, you've been doing research also in this area. What are your recommendations?
Okay, so I think, as my brother Adib said, I want to emphasize more on what we call community social support systems. Okay. And now we have to be very crime conscious at the community level. And we must begin to profile members of our communities and observe the way they behave. And now, if you look at all the things that community members have been saying, and I was listening to the video you played as part of, you know, the interviews you did with some of the people. They said the boy moved into the area recently. And for them, they don't know him to be like that. You don't need to know him to be like that because he's coming from somewhere. Probably he may have carried his tendencies there. So what is happening is that the communities must be more vigilant. And as Adib earlier on alluded to, you know, people have a lot of psychotic problems, you know, or issues that they are dealing with internally. And so sometimes you need to be more critical about the way people behave, changes in their behavior as they live among us. And it is only when we are able to do that and employ the social support system that we have at the community level that we will be able to pick some of these things up even before they happen. And if we don't do that and we think that no, I mean, it's business as usual, people can go about doing their own thing. Most of the time, people will act and the killers will strike and we always be found wanting. And now what I want to say and probably draw attention to is that looking at the nature of the crime and the kids that are involved. In fact, I've been analyzing the whole situation and I'm asking myself, okay, in recent times, there's a lot of missing persons going on in this country, you know, in different parts of the country. And considering that this guy even moved from one place recently to the Abyssine area, as some of your interviewees said, can we link this guy to some of the missing persons cases we've recorded in the country in recent times? How many more flesh do we have in the fridge of this guy, probably from where he came from before you go to Abyssine? These are questions I think the police must begin to ask. And for me, as a criminologist, if I'm to talk to this guy, there are a number of questions I'm going to ask him to be able to get into his mind. Because one thing that is so important for you to be able to fight crime is to be able to get into the mind of the criminal and to understand why they do the things they do, so that you can begin to put in measures to forestall such kind of occurrences, rather than just making it a simple case of, oh, and now if you look at this, I think it's serial murder. It may not necessarily be so. It may be as a result of maybe the person having certain instincts and certain criminal tendencies.
Certainly, we cannot overlook the psychological part of this one. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time. Dr. Jones Opoku-Ware, he's a criminologist and a crime researcher. He's with the KNUST. Adib Sani is a security analyst with expertise in forensic audit. I'm extremely grateful for your time this afternoon. Let's turn our attention now to COVID-19 and vaccinations. The World Health Organization is urging African countries to focus on vaccinating persons described as most at risk to avoid needless deaths from the virus. Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, notes that West Africa has in the last 4 weeks recorded its highest number of COVID-19 deaths since the pandemic. She's urging countries to pursue vaccination aggressively, as failure to vaccinate many people will negatively affect the global quest to contain the virus. Listen.
Now been more than 7.3 million cases on the African continent, and 184,000 people sadly have lost their lives. More countries are reporting variants of concern, with the Alpha now in 44 African countries, Beta in 39, Delta in 30, and the Gamma in 4 countries. Vaccine coverage unfortunately remains low, with only 2% of Africans being fully vaccinated against COVID-19. But there's hope as vaccine shipments pick up pace with the COVAX facility, delivering almost 10 million doses to Africa so far in August. That's 9 times what was delivered in the same period in July. We are hopeful that COVAX shipments will keep ramping up to reach 20% of Africa's population by the end of this year. High-income countries have already, on average, administered more than 103 doses per 100 people, whereas in Africa, that number stands at 6. Failure to vaccinate the most at-risk groups in all countries will result in needless deaths. We say this every week, and it cannot be repeated enough. It will also contribute to conditions where the virus will very likely mutate further and could ultimately delay the global recovery from this pandemic. On the spread of COVID-19 in Africa, rapid and determined action from governments and people in a number of Southern African countries, for example, has led to a drop in cases. This shows that public health measures, and only where absolutely necessary, restrictions save lives and protect health systems and economies. 9 out of 23 countries experiencing a resurgence are in West Africa. Guinea-Conakry, for example, is experiencing rising cases. Côte d'Ivoire was added to our list of countries with cases surging last week, and Benin was added this week. Testing rates have been low in most countries in West Africa, mainly focused on travelers. I'd like to encourage all countries to urgently reinforce the public health and preventive measures, including testing, to understand where the virus is circulating and to inform action to protect communities. As WHO, we've assessed the functionality of health systems in West Africa is 21% lower than in Southern Africa. So we can expect the pressure of COVID-19 to hit these countries' systems harder and faster. To prepare for further increases, capacities to manage cases need to be urgently stepped up. The outbreaks of viral hemorrhagic fevers, Marburg and Ebola, at a time when COVID-19 cases are rising in a number of West African countries, highlights the multitude of challenges countries are facing in parallel to the pandemic. It also points to the critical importance of sustained investment in preparedness and the resilience of national health systems. The case of Marburg reported in Guinea is the first such case to be reported in West Africa. As WHO, we've assessed the risk of spread as high at that national level and across the African region, considering the porous borders and fragile health systems in the countries.
Dr. Moeti is WHO Regional Director for Africa. Well, our government is not resting. President Akufo-Addo is in Germany and will be holding meetings with manufacturers of the Pfizer vaccine in the hope of securing more jobs to vaccinate the 20 million people required to achieve herd immunity. Let's have a conversation with a scientist at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, Dr. Kwejo Asamoah-Kusi. He's an immunologist with the Noguchi Memorial Institute, and he joins us via Zoom. Doc, I'm grateful for your time this afternoon.
Yes, you're welcome, and good afternoon.
First of all, what's been your monitoring of the manner in which we are fighting the virus?
I think we started very well, looking at how many countries struggled in the beginning. We took up very well. Our prevention protocols were on point. We were praised in the international community. But I think we took our eyes off the ball at some point, and we let things slip. If we had maintained our foot on the accelerator right from then, things like mask wearing would not be an issue now, because we would be used to it. At the point we let our guard down and things have gone down the slope.
Dr. Amponsah, we're making a strong push to get as many people as possible to be vaccinated. I mean, how far will this take us, especially when we're being told that we've passed the stage of herd immunity?
So vaccination is important. It's important to vaccinate as many people as possible. And I've always been of the opinion that even with the current vaccination that is still ongoing or just ended last week, this should have focused on at-risk groups. I mean, the WHO rep whose video you played clearly stated that instead of opening it up and saying everybody above 18 years should go get vaccinated. We are not getting the product in as fast as we can. So what is coming in should be prioritized and given to those who are most at risk, those who are likely to come into contact with the virus, and those who are likely to die when they come into contact with the virus. I think that should have been our focus. Vaccination is important. As has been said, it works at 2 levels. It works at the individual level and then at the community level. At the individual level, you are protecting yourself, that is if you get vaccinated, from getting the infection, or actually reducing your chances of getting sick when you have the infection. It is at the community level that I am seeing a challenge. That is when you talk about herd immunity, vaccinating a certain critical mass and ensuring that everybody is protected. That is where the problem is. Because the rate at which we are going, and from the projections of how the vaccines are trickling in, that is going to be a challenge.
Now, so even though we're told that, I mean, that opportunity of getting herd immunity has passed us, so, I mean, but can we still achieve that herd immunity with the way things are going?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. On the trajectory that we are on, it will be very difficult to achieve herd immunity, because this is immunity that you create, okay, when you have vaccinated a good proportion, a certain minimum proportion of your population over some or within some time. But this is so spread out, and it's not anybody's fault. We just can't get a product. So we have been forced to spread this out over several months. And the reason why that will be difficult to achieve is that those who were vaccinated in March, okay, by December, when the last group are being vaccinated, there is every likelihood that a good proportion of them would have lost their immunity. There is also the possibility that in December, when the last group, that is even if you're able to do all 20 million by December, there's every possibility that by December, the variants that would be there will be so different from what were around when you were vaccinated. So all these are practical challenges that make the achievement of that herd immunity difficult, looking at how things are rolling out now.
I mean, from now to the next time we get vaccines or we start vaccinating people, what should we be doing, Doc?
Yes, I think the whole purpose of whether vaccination or prevention is to truncate or to prevent transmission. Okay, so now that we are struggling to get the vaccines, or even if we do get them, like I'm saying, it is so spread out that we may not be able to depend on vaccination to achieve the herd immunity. So the best option we have now to truncate or to sort of stop transmission or reduce it is to observe the prevention protocols, wearing of masks, social distancing, and the like. And I always cite this example. China was the first to experience this disease, and China was able to bring this under control without vaccines. When China was able to control this disease in the beginning, okay, there were no vaccines, and they did it just based on the prevention protocols. And for Africa and for at the rate at which we are going, our best chance of fighting this infection is prevention protocols. It doesn't mean vaccines are not good or do not bring in vaccines. They will protect at the individual level, but at the community level, I think our best chance is to strictly enforce the prevention protocols, especially mask wearing.
I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Kweju Asamoah-Kusi. He is an immunologist with the Noguchi Memorial Institute, and we've been having a conversation about how to deal with COVID-19 as the cases rise. We'll take a break this afternoon and bring you sports after this break. But there's also a conversation about WAEC and leakages. Stay on the pulse for more.
Main sound, it's time for sports on the pulse. And barely 3 weeks after his exploit at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, Ghana's sole medalist Samuel Techi has made his intentions clear. He wants to take the step up into the professional ranks. Simply put, he wants to start boxing for money. He wants to turn professional. And joining me via Zoom is my colleague Nathaniel Ato to try to weigh the merits and demerits of this decision and the move that he intends to make. Now, thank you very much for joining me. And, is he taking this step too early, Samuel Techi?
Thanks for having me here. Hans, I think that he needs to take a little more time. He needs to run a bit more of a course at the amateur ranks, build himself up a little more, and get up there. Sometimes you'd want to think about careers of the likes of Ike Bazooka Quarte, who became a world champion at a very early age. You would like to think of the likes of, even Isaac Dogbe, who became a world champion in his early 20s. You'd like to think about the likes of Mike Tyson, who became a world champion, at a very early stage. But the question you need to ask yourself is, what kind of, regimen did they go through? What kind of system did they go through in terms of competition and all of that? How did they get themselves prepared for this big stage? It is very, very important. Now, before I come back to Samuel Techi, let me digress a little bit and go to, Joshua Boachi, who is now one of our closest persons, or our closest people of Ghanaian skin to becoming a world champion. You look at the story of Joshua Boachi, he was knocking on the doors of the national amateur boxing team, the Black Bombers, some years ago, together with Isaac Dogbe. He didn't get the opportunity. Went back to the UK where he's based. He got the opportunity there. Went to Brazil, took part in the Olympics and won a bronze medal. After that, he has had a painstaking approach to his professional career. Now, the difference here is that over there in the UK, there is a more fluid competitive system for amateur boxers. So because of that, there is a bigger level of experience when you weigh the relative amateur boxer from that side of town as against our people here, or our boxers here. I like to quickly refer to the days when I used to cover the national amateur boxing team. I'm talking about the Greater Accra amateur boxing team, who at the time were led by the late, Gideon Quarte, may God bless his soul. Now, there was a weekly boxing league, which was organized at the prison's canteen, at the prison's headquarters here in Accra. And that gave our amateur boxers the opportunity to box every other Friday. Now, as this league grew, there were external relationships that were grown, in the sense that the likes of the Haringey Boxing Club of the UK established a relationship with Ghana. And because of that, there were competitive opportunities for these boxers for, invitational tournaments and all of that. And I remember very well that when the Haringey boxing team visited Ghana, the relative, or the average amateur boxer in the Haringey team had, 60 to 70 fights, as against our boxers. Our most experienced boxer at the time had about 30 or 40 fights. So that should just tell you that there's a very big gap. Okay. Samuel Techi has great talent. He has a big heart, and he has a big ambition as well. And I think that this stage offers him a bigger platform to prepare himself better. Let's remember that the next Olympic Games is not too far. I beg your pardon. The next Commonwealth Games is not too far away from us. And so because of that, I think that he can use that opportunity to further cement his credentials in the sport.
Right.
After that,
for the sake of time, let me ask you this. Is he making an obvious mistake, or is it that by taking this step, he's taking a risk where he probably hasn't calculated all the variables? Which one is it? Is the risk too much, or he's making a very obvious mistake?
Well, as a young man, he's permitted to dream. He's permitted to make his own projections. But from my point of view and from my experience, covering the sport all of these years, I feel that he needs a lot more time. So taking this step will be a little too early. I think that he should just take a little extra time, get himself on those competitive stages, and build his skill a little more. There's a reason why Yes.
There are, however, those who point to boxers who had, some had virtually no amateur careers and have gone on to the professional ranks and excel. There are some. We have Ghanaian boxers who haven't had anything close to what Samuel Techi has had in terms of amateur experience and achievement.
Definitely, Hans. Definitely, Hans. I agree with you. Ghana's very first boxing world champion in any sport, in the person of David Kote DK Poison, never had an amateur career. In recent days, Richard Comey came from kickboxing and just went straight to boxing. Emmanuel Tego did not also have an amateur career. Right. So we have the history to guide us. What I'm saying here is that every human being and every sportsman comes into this world with a different kind of talent. Their destiny is also woven differently. There are people who have physiological makeups that allow them to do certain things faster than others.
Right.
I look at Techi and I see a lot of raw talent, which still needs a little more polishing, because of which I believe he should take a little more time, just a little more time in the amateur rounds, fight around the world, have some fun, and get himself ready for the professional ranks. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nat, thank you very much. And we'll keep monitoring this to see how it goes. I get a point you're making, a bit more experience in the amateur rounds, maybe one more huge international level competition in the All-Africa Games or the next Olympics, try to see if you can even win the gold medal perhaps before making that jump. But in the meantime, we'll see how the career turns out for Samuel Techi. He's made it clear he wants to go professional. Behind the scenes, I'm sure there'll be people who will be advising him to maybe take his time and build up more experience and caliber before he makes that jump. But that will be all for now. You can read more sports at myjoyonline.com/sport. My name is Hans Mensah Ando.
It's a beautiful Monday and you're welcome to Let's Talk Showbiz here on the Joy News channel. My name is Doreen Avia, and of course, you know how I do it, by bringing you the latest in your world of showbiz. We're going to be talking about Jackie's Experience concert. We'll talk about Uncle Ebo Wide. We'll talk about Sak in Niger. Hey, what else do you want to talk about? My name is Doreen Avia and the show is Let's Talk Showbiz. If you're just joining me, this is Let's Talk Showbiz, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about Jackie's Experience concert, which took place in Kumasi over the weekend. Lots of artists were there to support the beautiful singer. I mean, talking about the likes of R2Bs, we all know how they roll. They usually don't, do this, but for them to go out there to support her, then you should know what time it is. So if you missed out on it, here are highlights of the concert in Kumasi over the weekend.
More of this in Kumasi, eh?
You already know the vibes.
say from the deepest part of my heart to my fans is that I'm going to do this for life. I'm going to keep doing good music for them, and I really appreciate every single person that came from far and near just to support my music. I love each and every one of them so much.
That was it at the Experience concert in Kumasi, and that was a beautiful Jackie doing her own thing on stage. Now let's move straight to Uncle Ebo White, who was earlier on Daybreak Hits today. He's been talking about quite a number of things, but he spoke about support. You know, I'm sure he's also observed something and he just wanted to share. I don't want to be the one to tell you about what he said about support, but let's take a listen to Uncle Ebo White on that.
Unfortunately, Ghanaians don't support each other. Ghanaians resent it when a Ghanaian is shining. And it's unfortunate. If there's one quality in the Ghanaian that I would like to change, that would be the one. I wish I had a magic wand to move it. And it's not just against Ebo White, against everybody. That sometimes we accept you only when you are out of this country. And the foreigners are applauding you. That is the first time that Ghanaians will say, oh, yeah, you know, that's where I got a new, I got any pa, and things like that. But when you are here, who is he? Don't mind him. On the crowd, you're too known crowd, or side crowd.
Right, so that was Uncle Ebo White, but I bet you he said a lot more things, which I will be sharing with you later on this week. But now let's move straight to Showbiz A to Z, which was on Saturday. Of course, Uncle Ken and Jesse were on the show. They've been talking about the gospel music industry. Yo, if you think that there are no issues, that there are, but I'm sure based on the things they said, we can pick up and see how best we can help and support gospel musicians and the industry in the whole.
To go and watch her. So that's why I said investment. So if Sinach is coming and you're willing to pay, the organizers are therefore compelled to pay her value. So from a value for value, it makes more sense to pay Sinach 20,000 because you, George Quay, you'll be willing to go and pay to watch her because she's an international star. Now, before he comes in, let me go to the non-gospel side. George, let's be very fair. Within the Ghanaian society, we don't like to pay for services rendered by people we know.
That's true. That's true.
If I call you, George, to come and be an MC for me, I won't pay you.
That's true.
I will say, Charlie, George, I beg you, Charlie, do me a favor.
They use the word.
If I enter Philip Nice barbering shop to cut my hair, even if he's not there, you can say, Charlie, oh, Minia, oh, Joe, which out you call. So I remember there was a lesson that Shatawale had given me when I was in Tigo, and Bulldog and Shatta gave me this particular lesson. When I asked Shatta them to do a song for Tigo when I was there, he said, "Numo owamiwa in lots of ways. I should charge you 100,000 Ghana cedis. Take the invoice for 100,000 Ghana cedis. I'm giving you 100% discount." So he gave me an invoice for me to see the value of the song
that he was going to do for you.
But he gave me 100% discount so that next time when I call him, I know that the value of the service is 100,000 Ghana cedis. And he was smart in doing that. And Bulldog was very smart in doing that. So next time, I can't call him or enter the barbering shop and say, I want to cut my hair for free. So for me, I am happy for the gospel artist to say to the church as an example that, oh, also Eja, me yes, I show we are, I am 10,000. But when team me yama, what catch the first time? I told him. Second time, of be my Eja, so last me can say 10,000, but if fear china called the frame me that. Yeah, meet me halfway through. If you don't communicate the value, the social, cultural setup within that space requires you to see your service not as showbiz, but as part of the ministry of God. So how do you charge?
Hit the nail on the head when he said that this thing starts from the youth.
The nurturing.
The nurturing factor. Because you see, it has come. I've heard most of these people sitting here, the table of men guys here with us. I've heard them complain, George, bitterly on air that the disparity between how much you, George Hui, as an event planner would
pay the world,
gospel
the non-gospel
artists will be lower, much lower than what you would pay the secular folks. And they complain bitterly about this disparity in payments. But today they are giving me cause to understand why it is so.
There's one aspect they haven't given you, but you learned, I'll tell you.
No, I'm saying
come from an event planner's perspective,
Yeah, it is so because that is what happens with the church. And I quite agree that if a church nurtures you from beginning to you becoming a star and the church wants your services, I think it is only fair and proper for you to do pro bono for that particular church.
My man, you gotta hip hop for your back. Don't get hot back, let me see. Mama, don't get hot back because you can't get a hip hop for your back. Mama, I'm sorry. It's all right. I'm Republican. Angelo. It's nice to meet you, Baba. Thank you. I thought money can never be problem. No. So that line is just too heavy. Yeah. See that one. You're a success. You know somebody not a problem.
Right, so that was Uncle Ken and Jesse talking about the gospel music industry. And this is where I wrap it all up on Let's Talk Showbiz. A very big thank you to you, all these amazing people here. I mean, the list is just endless, but thank you so much for being here to support this production. I'm Doreen Avi, and I'm back here same time on the JoyNews channel. Until then, have a great evening.